My name is Kate Phillips. I'm an illustrator and comic artist from Unama'ki, Cape Breton. My latest zine is Algorithm Garden, and you're listening to True North Country Comics Podcast.
Welcome to the True North Country Comics Podcast, dedicated to celebrate Canadian comic book and graphic novel creators and supporters. I'm John Swinimer. On this episode, I chat with Kate Phillips about her new zine, Algorithm Garden, and more. Kate Phillips is an award-winning illustrator and graphic novelist based in Cape Breton, Nova Scotia. When she isn't drawing comics and illustrating children's books, Kate has enthusiastically been involved in the illustration and comic scene through classroom visits, public talks, and art events. Kate is a board member of the Comic Creators Society of Nova Scotia and most recently, the Victoria County Arts Council. Kate is also actively involved in the 2026 Dartmouth Comic Arts Festival. Though her characters are often expressive and playful, Kate enjoys pushing at the border where silly intersects serious. She's interested in making the mundane into the uncanny to reflect our ever stranger reality. Kate's newest project is her zine entitled Algorithm Garden. Taking a page from the latest news about artificial intelligence, data centers, and rampant social media, Algorithm Garden is a new zine available in small formats at events that ponders escaping the tangled thorns of our current tech nightmares. Based on personal encounters with tech, this new offering questions the reason for tech, how to escape it so to live a more normal, less tech-centric life. So, without further ado, here's my chat with Kate Phillips about her new zine, Algorithm Garden, and more. So, Kate Phillips, thank you very much for taking time to chat with me.
Awesome. Thank you for having me. I'm very excited.
Well, I appreciate your time. I know you're very busy, but before I get going with all the questions, I would like to know, what was the first comic book that you read?
The first comic book that I read was a issue, like a completely random issue of a Sonic comic, like the Archie old Sonic comics. I had one issue. I live in a small town, so it was hard to get those things. So I just ended up with one single issue of a Sonic comic, and that was the first comic that I fell in love with.
That's pretty cool. Yeah, I can't go wrong with Sonic, that's for sure.
Yeah.
So good stuff growing up, but I'm wondering who or what inspires you to create today?
I love the comic scene in the Maritimes. I'm very, very inspired by all of the other comic artists around me. Like I think about there's an amazing group of folks in Halifax region, a couple people from Sackville, New Brunswick that I think of off the top of my head. Just so many good community members around me. That is what is inspiring me most right now.
So we met up recently. You were in Toronto at the Toronto Comic Arts Festival. So I got to ask you, how was that event for you?
That was awesome. That was my first TCAF. It was really, really exciting. Absolutely overwhelming in terms of the amount of people. I think I just heard their numbers. They had something like 32,000 attendees or something like that. And like over 450 exhibitors, which I was one of. So it was really amazing to do. And it was a really good vibes, community vibes all around. Very, very positive event for me.
Glad to hear. So we're here talking today about your latest work, Algorithm Garden. Can you tell me, what is that all about?
Yeah. If you're paying attention to all the online stuff right now with either AI or significant amount of just like constant political content online, it's exhausting. I've been finding it exhausting, but I've also been finding it really motivating in terms of making artwork. So Algorithm Garden is kind of a response to that. It is hard to describe because it is speculative fiction and almost poetry, but it's just a small comic. And it's just basically my feelings on the social media feed, the data that were constantly being harvested from us, and also my response to that and how to respond to that in the real world.
So it's actually a tangible, physical way of getting offline, would you say?
Yeah, well, yeah, for me, it was a tangible, physical way of getting offline. It was the first comic in a long time that I spent doing mostly physically as opposed to digitally. So that was one way that I got off the screen. But the comic itself is actually about me. It's almost like an autobiographical situation in which I felt like I was being consumed by the online news feed and constant waves of content. I felt compelled to devour them every day, but it was just becoming exhausting. So it was, in fact, devouring me instead. So within the comic, I started doing other things aside from consuming digital stuff. I started making stickers. I started getting out into the real world and that kind of thing. It's kind of like a little small bio story about my response to just the sheer overwhelming waves of digital content right now,
Right.
which is exhausting.
Yes. Yeah. Well, I'm glad you found an outlet for that.
Yeah.
And I understand you have another book in the works called Women in Trades. I know that's a big topic. My daughter is actually a plumber, believe it or not, and doing well. But want to ask you, what is this book all about?
So I'm working directly with the Nova Scotia Apprenticeship Agency. They've reached out to me to work on a book for women in trades. So they actually reached out to a number of real women in the trades in Nova Scotia to send in photos, to send in what they do, some action shots of them. And then we're working with the writer Sal Soller, whom a lot of comics related work under their belt as well. And wrote and designed a children's book based on all of these women that sent in their photos. So it's a fictional story about a little girl who is asking lots of questions about all of these trades and getting into kind of shenanigans and finding more and more information about these real women in trades in Nova Scotia. It is a very fun project that I've been working on.
Sounds like it. Is it something that'll be used to promote and encourage young children to get involved in the trades? Is that what it's all about?
Yeah, so I think the Nova Scotia Apprenticeship Agency is planning on distributing it directly through schools. And they're getting it printed. I think it's got some government funding as well. And doing a printing and release directly to schools for educational purposes. I don't know where it will go on beyond that. I know that that's our first goal. We already have our print deadlines in place. And so I'm, of course, scrambling to get all of the sketches together. The draft is written, though. Like, everything is written and approved. And so now it's just on me to make it visually appealing.
And I'm sure you'll do a great job. And speaking of that, I want to talk about the tools used to create your art. You talked a little bit hinted about moving from digital to traditional tools. Can you talk about how you're creating art these days?
Yeah, I've found, especially in the last year and a half, even two, I've been kind of motivated to do physical work anyway. I think just because I got perhaps a little bored with the digital work. But also AI has kind of sucked the fun out of digital work as well, where it's just like, yeah, I sit there and I think, well, I could just click a button and have this done, and it's not as fun. So I've been doing a lot of physical inking. Maybe I will do the sketches digitally. So like I might do, for instance, for Algorithm Garden, I did a lot of sketches, a lot of thumbnailing digitally, but then when it came to the actual pages, I was doing physical inking, physical coloring kind of thing. And similarly with the next projects that I'm working on, I plan on doing it with physical inks, just because I really enjoy using dip pen. I really enjoy using masking tapes and whiteout and all of these like imperfections and material use, which I just really enjoy.
You get more satisfaction that way?
I find it's much more satisfying for me as an artist. I need to let go a little bit. I find that I'm a little too anal when I'm working digitally. I become just a horrible perfectionist where I'm just erasing every little tiny pixel and being really, really perfect and really, really sharp about everything. But when it's physical media, I just can give myself permission to be a little imperfect, because it's like, well, it's physical media. I can't be perfect. So it gives me a little more freedom. It's just much more satisfying to hold the physical copy at the end of the day.
And it puts the Kate Phillips stamp on your art too.
It feels nice. And that's my background. My background was fine arts. So I started with oil painting and darkroom photography, and I did a lot of printmaking, a lot of intaglio printmaking and relief printmaking. So I can kind of go back and find those techniques in the comic making now, which is just really satisfying to come full circle like that.
Now, at the outset, we were talking about the Toronto Comic Arts Festival. Wondering, do you have any other plans to attend any other events later this year to promote your books?
Yeah, absolutely. So Algorithm Garden launched at TCAF. And then I also have, I think there'll be a children's book, Norm the Bull's Birthday Party, which is for a self-published author in Lower Sackville, Kathy Hawkins. She'll be launching some stuff. I might be chasing her around as well. And then Dartmouth Comic Arts Festival in August is the biggest event that I've got on my plate. I'm very excited about that.
Now, DCAF, I've been there before, and it's a great event. Can you sort of drop any hints to listeners about what's going to happen at this year's Dartmouth Comic Arts Festival?
Yeah, I think we originally first met at DCAF, actually. But yeah, so I'm lucky to be able to chat with you about some of these things. I'm part of the Comic Creators Society of Nova Scotia, so we're helping to plan some of the events around Dartmouth Comic Arts Festival. That is, I think, the weekend of August 9th. The festival is happening on the Sunday, but there's also panels, presentations, special guests, and workshops on the day before, on the Saturday. I'm really excited about it. We've got the schedule all set out, and then the festival market itself with all the comic creators and vendors, it's all free to attend. So we're really excited about it, and we've got some really good guests this year. The talks will be taking place at Alderney Gate Library, and the decaf main event is within Alderney Market. So both of which are luckily in the same building as the Dartmouth Ferry Terminal. So it makes a very easy, fun, and summer commute over.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's wonderful to be right on the water and sometimes surprise people when they come across on the ferry. They're inundated with creators and wonderful works of art. And I guess for another audience that perhaps might not see it, that might not be thinking there's anything there, are just amazed by what they can see.
Yes, I completely agree. Like Dartmouth Comic Arts Festival is my absolute favorite event of the year. I'm probably a little biased, but even after I've traveled across Canada for some other comic festivals, I still find Decaf to be one that I get most excited about. Community vibes are usually really amazing, but I always find I'm falling in love with a new artist or getting energized or inspired by the talent that I find myself surrounded by. But also, like the guests that show up, like the community members and guests that visitors that show up are also amazing. As you mentioned, like the event is free and it's in the ferry terminal. So like people will just show up by accident. They're on their commute. They don't expect to come across a comic festival, or maybe they don't realize how big the comic scene is. So they get very pleasantly surprised and they kind of discover a gem as well. So it's very exciting.
With all the many projects on the go, I hear that you might be doing a residency. Can you talk about that?
I am, yeah. So I was very lucky this year to be selected as one of the Sable Island Institute's artists in residence this year for 2026. So in the coming months, I will actually have the opportunity to go live on Sable Island for a few weeks. My proposal was to create some sequential narrative and comic art in response to that experience, which goes hand in hand right now with my current speculative work, The Algorithm Garden. It will work as a spiritual successor to my environmental docucomic spray days, which I had done a few years ago as well.
Pardon my ignorance, but from what I can remember, my hazy memory about Sable Island is there's these bunch of wild horses that run around on it, and there's not much else.
Yeah,
what else is going on there?
That's actually really accurate. So when I had applied to it, I was thinking to myself, like, this is cool, but like, isn't there nothing there but horses? Like, I didn't really realize what's going on there. But it is a very small sandbar. It's 35 kilometers long and maybe like 1.5 kilometers wide. And there's no trees. It's just like sand and dunes. There is Parks Canada research related site there. There's people on the island at all times like doing Parks Canada work and research work. And there's a lot of researchers going here and there. And there's maintenance crews and stuff. So there's people there. But generally the general public can't just show up and go there and stay. There's no real accommodations. So I'm very, very excited and very lucky to be able to go and actually spend some time there myself. And I'm just really excited personally. I'm excited for this personally because I cannot wait to go. There are horses, which I'm like not afraid of horses, but I have a respect for them. So I'm very excited to see them. But I'm also really proud that the proposal specifically for comics and sequential illustration was accepted by the Institute, especially because it's in the same company as really other impressive art, music, poetry. Obviously, I'm preaching to the choir here with True North Country Comics. We know that comics and graphic novels have a long history of really powerful artistic merit and the messages, but it's really great to see that recognition. And then, of course, similarly, when I'm wearing my children's illustrator hat, I'm very excited to see this kind of all ages accessibility to the arts. So yeah, very, very thrilled to be documenting my upcoming time there. I'm very excited to learn about it too, because again, I was also thinking, I'm like, how do you just go there? But yeah, there's stuff there. Yeah, creating comic works in response to that. And excited to have a platform, both for the comics and the environmental political artwork that I've been working on.
Well, congratulations on that. That sounds like it'll be a worthwhile endeavor for sure.
Thank you.
You talked a little bit before about the Comic Creators Society of Nova Scotia, and I'm sorry I didn't ask you more about it, but can you explain what is this group all about?
Yes, the Comic Creators Society of Nova Scotia. It's just a small not-for-profit. We're just a board that is basically in support of Dartmouth Comic Arts Fest and other small events that we can get going in Nova Scotia. So the maritime comic scene is actually really, really strong. It's growing. It's a very thriving space. And there's so many people and so many artists that we want to highlight and so many comic projects that we want to be excited about. So Dartmouth Comic Arts Fest being the most prominent event, we're doing a lot to support that. So for instance, we've helped schedule all the talks on the Saturday before the festival, getting in contact with the guests and making up the workshops and stuff like that. But just also like keeping engaged with the comics community here. There's a really strong group in Halifax that does, like, they anthologize some stuff and they meet up roughly every month or every 2 months. Then they do a lot of critique circles as well. And it's just like a really positive community. So we're kind of helping to support that as well.
Yeah, lots of great creators in Nova Scotia, that's for sure. And it's great that there's a society that's promoting that in the arts. And I understand right now, not to get too political, but the government of Nova Scotia has decided to not fund certain projects. I know there's a publisher, we know Conundrum Press, who's been under the gun and had the rug pulled out from underneath them, so to speak. So I know it can be tough, that's for sure.
And a lot of the artists are feeling that. So I'm glad that we get to support them, at least in the community way. Like, we will do some grant applications and we have small amounts of funding, and we're trying to get that stuff moving so that we can support the local arts community, because if the government has kind of pulled the rug out, as you mentioned. And I found that both in my own work and also my peers' work, a lot of the arts projects that we've been expecting to do and moving forward with have really slowed down. So we don't want that momentum to slow down, which is why we're working hard as volunteers.
Well, it sounds like you've got a lot on the go, not only today and in the future. So I've got to ask you, where should people go online to find out more about what Kate Phillips is up to?
So if you're looking at what I'm up to, you can follow me. I'm not super great at the social media thing, but if you check my website, it's katephillips.net is my website. And if you check that out, you'll have little sneak peeks into the current works that I'm doing. I try to keep that updated. My socials are at Kate Phillips Art, which is, I try to update it, but it's not that great at it. But that would be where I would be able to see what I'm up to. And then in terms of decaf and the upcoming events for that, you'd be able to find it at decaf.strangeadventures.com, which is the official website. And they're also on Dartmouth Comics. That's comics with an X on socials. And you'll be able to see the upcoming events for them as well.
Thanks to Kate for the chat. You can discover more about Kate Phillips online at katephillips.net and on Instagram at Kate Phillips Art. You can discover more about the Dartmouth Comic Arts Festival online at decaf.strangeadventures.com and on Instagram at Dartmouth Comics, and that's comics with an X. And thank you for tuning in to the True North Country Comics podcast. I invite you to visit the True North Country Comics website to listen to even more conversations with creators about making comic books and graphic novels. You are invited to follow True North Country Comics on most social media platforms, and you're welcome to send any and all feedback to True North Country Comics at proton.me. Thanks for tuning in, and come back soon for another episode. Bye for now. True North Country Comics podcast is copyright True North Country Comics, copyright 2026.